podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Beers and Beers podcast. As always, the guillotine, Rambo, the Tower of Power. But this morning, because it is the morning, we got Ryan, the Hyman Smasher Maitland.
I know you were starting the podcast right there.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Well, here we are.
Here we
Bring
are.
that thing in maybe a touch closer.
Just a tickle.
Just a tickle.
I think you told me the same thing last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a tickle. The old tonsil tickler. So, we did a brief podcast on the way down here that's going to be a Spotify exclusive just because the video was... Well, it's in a truck. So
You can't just put like a graphic over it?
I might be able to make something like that happen. We'll see once I get all this stuff produced. But if you didn't listen to that, we are currently in. Well, Ryan actually lives in Salisbury, but where we were hunting was Dorchester County, it's south of Cambridge, at this place called Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge, and then that's where Ryan and I went.
Yeah.
And then you guys went. Where'd you go?
We went to Fishing Bay.
Fishing Bay.
Fishing Bay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's public land also in Dorchester County.
It's like 26,000 acres or something crazy like that.
Yeah, Blackwater's just as massive, but Blackwater's funny because it's got units, and there's like Unit X, Unit R, Unit N, Unit U, and each one of these units has 1,000 to 2,000 acres to maybe even some smaller ones around 500. But it's all managed by the federal Fish and Wildlife. And you have to pull a tag there, which me and Ryan both got tags because we've been planning this trip for a while. So we bought tags. That's why you guys went to Fishing Bay.
Yeah.
Did you guys try to get a Blackwater tag?
No. We were planning on going.
They're sold out.
Yeah. And one drunken Saturday, you were like, come on, man, let's just go down there and do it. And we were like, okay, let's give it a try.
And we're talking about Sika deer for those.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that conversation went.
Sika.
I call them Sika deer. That's what the locals call them.
But it is Sika.
It's spelled more like Sika, but I like Sika. It rolls off the tongue well.
I'm not a weirdo. I don't say Sika.
Sika.
So these deer they are not indigenous to this area. What happened was, I think it was 1916.
Yep.
Two different people brought these animals over from Japan, and they released them, one on James Island in Dorchester County.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
It's completely underwater.
Yeah.
And then another person dropped them off on Assateague Island, which is, where's that at, Ryan? What county do you know?
It's in... It's either Worcester or Somerset. I think it's Worcester.
Worcester County. Yeah, I think it's Worcester. Yeah, so they brought these things over there then, and I think they brought like 2 or 6 or something like that. It was a small amount.
I think it's 6.
Of Sika deer. And they basically, what they look like is little elk. They're like a Sika deer stag. The males are called stags. The females are called hinds. A Sika deer stag looks basically like a 100-pound elk.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like. Pretty much identical. The
They
antlers,
got like the mane and everything.
yeah, they have like a mane. The antlers are the same. Like a Sika deer and a 6-pointer is a mature stag. Mm-hmm. There rarely you'll see an 8, but a 6-point is a nice mature stag for a Sika stag.
Yeah.
And then the hinds they might get up to like 70 pounds or so.
That's a mammoth.
Yeah, and that's a big hind.
Yeah. The state record Sika stag is like 86 inches.
86 inches.
Yeah.
That's a
tiny.
hammer. Yeah.
But compared to a whitetail, it's
They're super tiny.
yeah, incredible.
But so they brought them over here back in the early 1900s, 1916ish, around that time, and they've spread. Now they're even up north in what's the county to the north of you?
To the north of it is Dorchester.
Yeah, they're in Dorchester County. They're in Worcester County. They're in Wacomico. They're in Somerset. Yeah, so they've spread, but the population is relatively small. They estimated around 15,000 animals. Wow. And you can get 1 stag and 2 hinds is the bag limit per year on these animals. And they're notoriously hard to hunt. They call them the marsh ghost because they are very nocturnal. They don't move a whole lot in daylight, but and they like to live in this extremely hostile environment. I mean, it's just a nasty swamp, mosquitoes. It's like quicksand. Like you can fall into this stuff, and they like to be in very secluded regions. Like it is for me, who I really enjoy a challenge and a misery, just punishing myself.
Thrive on misery.
I just love I embrace the suck, and so these animals are just really cool for me to hunt. I really like it because it is hard and it can be kind of miserable. And
As you found out last night.
Yeah. We'll get into that, but yeah. So we came down here to get on these things, and it is. Oh, one other thing, they bugle, and the hinds will mew, and these animals are extremely vocal. They're actually a lot like elk in that way. Mm-hmm. We even spoke to some local guys, and one of them, he's not a local guy, but he's been hunting them for, I think this is his 6th year. He said he's been out west and hunted elk, and he said these things are just as loud as elk, which is incredible. And I can say I've never hunted elk, but I've heard these things bugle in close, and it is thunderous. It is nothing like you see like these videos on YouTube. Like it doesn't do it any justice. It's very loud. They can be extremely vocal animals. And I got this Sika reel.
Give that thing a rip, dude.
This is a call that I bought. Yeah, so I'll give you. Now I'm gonna do this. No justice. I am not good at this, but this is roughly what the bugle sounds like.
That was actually one of your best ones.
Hey, you're getting a hang of it.
That was good. That's pretty much what a stag bugle sounds like. And then the hinds will rip off. And a guy we were walking out to brought this to my attention, and I hadn't realized it, but I hadn't until he said it. They do pretty much every time. They do like 3 mews, and I was like, yeah, right? Yeah, they have. But they go like kind of like that. That was pretty shitty, but that's essentially the noises these things make. And they will blow at you, but it's more of like a bark.
Yeah.
Like a gargle-y blow. So, why don't we start with day one? Runsky, right? Johnny, how'd your day one go?
Day one, we couldn't go in the morning. Thank God we couldn't have, because that would have been a shit show. We had to go get a plug for the boat, a spotlight. So we went out in the afternoon. We went out way too early, we found out later on. We got out there at like 12:30, 1 o'clock. We sat there till 6. We decided to get down before it got too damn dark out. And we didn't see or hear a goddamn thing. So we were on Guinea Island out in the middle of Fishing Bay.
Which is haunted, we learned.
Yeah, apparently it's extremely haunted, and some locals won't even go on it. It's so haunted, apparently.
No shit.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Big Liz or something.
Big Liz is the ghost name?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Apparently she was a slave back in the day. And she was like a spy, and her master found out. And he took her out to this island or a surrounding island. And on the pretense they were going to bury some Confederate gold, had her dig the hole. Once she got the hole to depth, he chopped her head off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So apparently Big Liz is in the swamp.
Shout out.
Shout out Big Liz.
So day one we get out there, we kind of had to modify our plan a little bit. So
Yeah.
the island that we boated to, there was another patch of trees and some solid ground, 300 yards out in the marsh?
We were on the north side of Guinea Island, and we were looking at Chance Island, and there's about a 200-yard
walk.
Yeah, like through the marsh.
Through the marsh.
But on like the northeastern side of Guinea Island is like this little patch of trees. It was about a 200-yard walk, and
so we're walking through.
There.
So we start walking through the frag to get to this little small portion in between the two islands. So, I'd say the first 100 yards walking through the frag were a breeze. Nothing.
Like 4 inches of water.
Like 4 inches of water. Got our waders on, just walking through. And then I'm probably, 5 yards in front of you.
Yeah.
And my right leg falls into a sinkhole. And
Big Liz was sucking you under.
Yeah. I got water. And I'm a tall guy. My whole right leg was submerged in a sinkhole in the middle of a marsh.
Man, in the water and the mud, it smelled like a gut shot deer.
It smelled awful.
Smelly shit.
So John's looking at me, and I'm on the ground, like looking up at him, like, okay, give me your bell. He's like, you good? I'm just like working my leg out, and I got water in my fucking waders. I'm like, God damn it! Welcome to the Eastern Shore, bitches. And so I get work myself out, and I'm good. So we're showing a little more caution as we're proceeding. We're about 100 yards from where we wanted to get to.
We got within 80 yards.
80 yards.
Yeah.
So I'm walking. I'm feeling around, a little more cautious. And I'm like, I'm good. And I hear, whoop. And I turn around. And I'm looking like up for John behind me. I don't see him. And I look down at the ground, and John's got... he fell into a sinkhole. He's got fucking water up to his goddamn chest.
I was nipples deep in this fucking bar.
I mean, both legs. Stuck.
Oh, yeah.
Like dangerous stuck.
Yeah, thank God you were there. I'd still be out there screaming.
John would still be out there.
So he hands me his bow, and we get his climber off his back, and he uses his climber to pull himself out of this fucking sinkhole in the marsh. And we're at this point, we're like, dude, we can't risk. Because if you get stuck and I get stuck...
You're fucked.
You're fucked.
Yeah.
2 people, 1 person gets stuck, you help each other out, and you're cool. But we ended up working our way back to the island.
Guinea Island.
And we kind of set up on the edge of the island, overseeing the marsh. And, didn't see anything.
Man, we've seen plenty of trails going through that marsh, but just nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did hear bugles, but, man, they were...
Light years away.
A ways away.
In a different universe.
But I think that was the most scenic sit I've ever had.
It was, look, someone just painted it in front of you.
It looked fake.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. And we'll be posting pictures and all that stuff for everyone to check out. But, man.
Talk about some beautiful country.
Talk about beautiful.
God. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, it's a good way to say it.
The mosquitoes out here, they call them the Dorchester Air Force.
Dude, they weren't as bad where we were.
Nah.
Well, the wind was whipping
wind
off
was
the
helping
marsh,
us.
so we were...
Yeah, so day 1, we almost died in the marsh. But, yeah.
I wonder how many people, if any, maybe none, but have actually fell into one of them sinkholes and fucking not been able to get out.
Dude, I
guarantee
if you were like an older man, like 65,
you're fucked.
Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
A guy I was talking to said if you're going to go out in the marsh, he really recommends like a ski pole. Mm-hmm. So you can just get a feel for how that ground gives.
Yeah, you have to walk on the frag.
Yeah.
If you see like a hole where there isn't frag,
You're in.
you're in. You are in.
Yeah, that's scary shit.
Well, it's like we'll get into it when we talk about our experience, but there's like a little creek that's no more than 6 feet long or wide. 6 feet, it's 8 feet.
Yeah, maybe 10.
10, but like
15
it
at some
doesn't. It
spots.
looks like it's just sitting water, but it's 6 foot deep at certain spots. Like, and if you don't know what's going on, like that's
You're
a
in.
miserable
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, if you try to step in there, even if you have chest waders, you're probably going under in that little creek.
It is. It's dangerous hunting fucking Sika deer.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, in certain situations.
Yeah,
And
it's their habitat. Is it dangerous?
That's why they like it.
Yeah,
It's dangerous.
We're talking about frags, so they're an invasive species. It almost looks like really tall wheat, and they call them phragmites, and it's spelled like phragmites, but I think the pronunciation is phragmites. I'm not sure.
It's like Sika deer. No one knows how to say it.
Yeah.
Phragmites, phragmites.
Yeah, I just call them frags, but it's really cool stuff. It looks cool. But it's very invasive, so it's spread down here. And the Sika deer, they love it. They'll travel through it. It gives them cover. Apparently, they'll even eat it. But
Yeah.
They'll eat anything.
they'll eat anything. They're just hardy little animals. I mean, poison ivy, fucking acorns,
Like
fucking
the
Briar.
goat.
briars. Yeah, they'll eat anything. Yeah, they're like a goat almost in
fucking anything.
that regard. But it's also the rut right now, which is why we picked this time for them. Their rut is like the first couple weeks of October. The middle, right now, which is like October 16th or whatever the date is like prime time. It's a great time to hunt here, which is why we chose this time.
So Saturday, we decided to go out in the morning because we left all our shit out there, so we kind of had to go back out. And we had to boat out there. It's a 2.5 mile boat ride on the Transaquaking River, I think it's called. And in the morning, out in the marsh, it's black.
Like no light pollution. It is pitch black.
Yeah.
You can see every star in the sky.
You can even see the Milky Way a little bit.
Yeah.
It's fucking black. And we were not prepared. We were not prepared. We putted 2.5 miles through the and it was low tide. And out here, if you don't know the river during low tide, you can get up on a mud bank pretty quick. But we made it out, and what time was that first bugle? Like 6:40.
Yeah,
we heard it, but it was so far away. We didn't hear anything on Guinea Island.
We turned around, looked at each other, and we're like, "Yep,
that was a bugle." And we got down like 9 o'clock, and we decided to walk the island,
do some run and gun.
Yeah, and we didn't see nothing. We didn't see any sign of anything. We seen more human shit than we seen animal shit.
We saw someone, someone took a shit in the woods and wiped their ass with a t-shirt.
They took their t-shirt off and wiped their ass and threw it down.
That was our Sika experience summed up in a...
And then on the
way...
way...
across another hunter.
Yeah.
Snuck up on a hunter.
We did sneak up on him.
Man, he had no clue we were there.
Yeah.
What was he, in a stand?
No, he was doing what we were doing.
Yeah.
He's still on the ground. Yeah. Was he sitting?
No, he was up.
Standing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you guys seen him and kind of like back to
exactly.
We could have killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have.
Did you go full John?
Sika! No. That's just a person.
Yeah, so we got out of there about noon, and I'm ripping on the little Wenzel.
We got a lot of gear.
By Wenzel, he means the boat.
The Sika Seeker 5500.
Yeah. Is it, though?
No. No. It's definitely the Sika, the Seeker.
Yeah, the Seeker.
It's not the Sika Finder.
No. It ain't the Seducer.
No. So I'm ripping on this little 9.9 Johnson, just trying to get back. Because at this point, I've got a pretty good feel for the river, and it's high tide. So I was going to be balls to the wall the whole way back to the ramp. And we're probably over the weight limit on the boat.
Us alone probably put the boat over its weight limit.
The weight limit's 575 pounds.
We're almost right there.
Plus gear, climbers, all the other shit. So I'm ripping on it. And all of a sudden the RPMs just fly through the fucking roof. I throw a prop hub, and we're still 2 miles out. So we have to do 1 mile an hour all the way back to the ramp. And the wind was like 20 miles an hour.
Well, luckily...
The last stretch,
we had the current working with us in the wind. So.
We were ripping that through that little canal.
We almost stripped our clothes off and sewed them together and made a sail out of it. But,
we were moving that slow.
But we didn't. We thought about it, though.
And at one point I was like, man, would it be faster to paddle? I was like, where's that paddle at? And apparently the paddle flew out on the road somewhere. So
we were up Schitt's Creek.
Without a paddle.
Yeah.
Thank God that little motor kept running.
Yeah, you guys just had a terrible fucking experience.
I thought it was a good time.
I mean, it sounds rough.
I just wish we would have seen something.
Yeah.
Anything. I mean, Guinea Island is a big island. I was expecting to see a whitetail.
Yeah.
At the least, but...
The island's like connected through marsh. So like the Sika deer could travel.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think they do. We see trails. I don't know. I think it's Big Liz's trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Liz is just walking through the marsh at night. Apparently.
Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, you didn't see any tracks?
Nothing.
No scat, nothing? Yeah.
I seen another guy look like he was coming in to check a trail camera, but...
Yeah, our first day in.
Yeah.
We finally get set up. We're in the middle of nowhere. And we hear a boat pull in next to ours, and we look at each other like...
Really?
Really? We mouth like really to each other. And this guy, no hunting gear, he's in fucking flip-flops and board shorts with a goddamn Bud Light t-shirt on, comes flying through the woods, comes in, checks a trail cam, and rolls back out. And I'm like, God damn.
At least he was quick with it.
Yeah.
Like, he knew we were there, obviously. He was right next to our boat. That guy didn't steal anything, so shout out to that guy.
Yeah, so that's I wonder if he just put that camera there, like, because muzzleloader's about to start.
That's what we were thinking.
Exactly what
and he probably seen nothing and was like, well, I ain't coming here.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't know. There was a reflector on the tree.
Oh, there's guys marking it up back there.
Attacks.
Yeah.
I feel that they're there when they're there.
But when are they there?
Yeah, but that's the question, because there's local guys hunting there for a reason.
Yeah. But if you're not hearing bugles, then they're not there.
It's not there.
Right.
Yeah. Because I mean, Ron and I had a totally different experience, and
The complete 180.
yeah, so much better. But you can hear these bugles, especially once it gets dark. I mean, these animals are ripping off, and I mean, it is loud, and it is unmistakable as to what it is. And if you're not hearing that where you're hunting, then you should probably just hunt somewhere else. If for anybody who's interested in doing this, like, you'll know that if they're on a property, it's very evident that they're there. You might not see them, but you'll hear them. You will hear them.
We didn't hear anything.
That's something I was wondering, and I don't know if any of you guys know this. And I'm assuming they bugle year round. They probably just do it a lot more in the rut. But do they bugle like out of mating season?
I know they're
idea.
vocal species.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do some sort of vocalization all year round.
Yeah.
But they just hammer it during the rut.
Yeah.
There's nothing online about
Nothing.
these little critters.
There is zero information.
I told Seth when we were driving him back, I'm like, I feel like how it must have felt like hunting in like the 70s and 80s before the internet.
Yeah.
To where like how I'm getting information is I'm just like, luckily some of the guys in Dorchester County are awesome because I'm just calling them, hammering them with questions. Like, we're just trying to meet anyone we can. Be like, so what do we do here? But it's like different because you can't look up online anything.
Yeah.
And the only book about hunting Sika deer.
Yeah, don't even give that guy the satisfaction. Don't even put the name out
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You were sending us snippets of it, and I was
of
like,
this
what?
shitty ass
It
fucking
was
book this
completely
guy
made
wrote on
up.
Sika deer. Completely.
He just made shit up. Yeah.
But that's the only resource on it.
Yeah.
The Sika deer breathe oxygen.
It's a terrible book.
I lost it when he sent us the screenshot of the one. He was like, you can tell a doe. A doe. He called them does and bucks. He didn't call them stags and hinds.
The guy doesn't
You
even
can tell
know
a
what the fuck
Sika
they're called.
buck and doe apart. One will have a rack and one will not.
Yeah. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah, so fuck that guy.
So Ryan, basically what you did is a while back when you were coming down here, like kind of scouting and stuff like that, you talked to some guys.
Yeah, so Blackwater is, like, obviously it's a wildlife refuge. How do you say it?
Refuge.
Refuge. I can never say the word right. And they're very selective about, like, scouting, and, like, they have their own set of rules where, like, because it's a migratory bird area, and there's certain bird species that will only go there. So they're
Really?
like, yeah, there's spots where you can't even, like, drive through with a dog in the car. You'll get a ticket.
Oh, shit.
It's insane.
Wow.
So they're real selective about, like, when you can go in the woods, stuff like that. So they have certain scouting days, but outside of that, like, and I think it's like the allure of the Sika deer, to where the locals won't tell. Most locals won't tell you anything. They're very, like, tight to the chest.
I don't blame them.
But I went to the visitor center, and I was, like, asking the people there, like, do you know anything about it? Like, do you know anything hunt zones? And nobody could tell me anything. And then luckily, as I was walking out, there was 3 guys in full camo in, like, August. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to wing it and talk to these guys. And they spent, like, a half hour, 45 minutes talking to me. I called him a couple times, and he just shot the shit with me. So shout out Wolford Store, Gary Smith, great guy.
Great dude.
But they really, like, helped us out. Like, we would not have had the experience we had without that. But
Good shit.
Yeah, he gave us a lot of pointers and just general information on them. And there's so many questions that you have that, I mean, I still have so many questions. I feel like hunting them just made me have more questions.
And I'm sure a lot of your questions just can't be answered.
Yeah.
Because they're so hard to hunt. Like, there's no information. Like, I feel like we're learning by talking to other people and just doing it.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about our experience, but I feel like for our first year ever, like, we met people that were out there hunting, and they're like, yeah, I've been here since Wednesday. I haven't seen a single one.
Wow.
Like, I heard them, but I haven't seen them. And, like, we are so much more prepared for next year that
I think we're going to, next year is going to be awesome. This year was awesome, don't get me wrong. But next year, I think we might
Connect.
Yeah, because we had some. One of us did make a shot, but so all right, we'll get into it. So day one for us, we are not taking a boat in. So
Good thing.
Yeah, we got up.
'Cause that was miserable.
I enjoyed the boat ride.
We got up
Not the way back.
Not the way.
Anyway.
We got up around 3, and so it's a 50-minute drive from Ryan's place to Blackwater where we're going, and so we got up around 3, got our stuff together, got our waders and everything all set up, and we make our way in there, and we get there and we park, and there's nobody else there. So we're like, awesome. and we start our trek in. It's a hike. I think the first morning, and this is why we wanted to get there so early, it was about a 2-mile one-way hike in.
Damn.
So we've got waders on, we've got backpacks and climbers, about 50 pounds of gear on our back, 2-mile hike into the marsh. So it's not an easy hike either. But a lot of the way that we went in, we had a nice trail to walk on, so that was good. So, and it's just, it is just beautiful out there. As soon as we get there, I'm just looking at these stars. It is just amazing. Ryan had to go take a shit in the woods. And,
I just shit right on the path.
Yeah, right on the path. And so we start our hike in and into this area where Gary said is a general area of where he likes to hunt. So that's where we went.
It was a very those guys went marsh edge. We hunted a lot of flooded timber.
Yeah, it was basically like a swamp that we were hunting in. It wasn't there was no frag around us. It was just flooded timber. We didn't even need muck or waders. We needed muck boots. Yeah. You definitely need tall muck boots, because some spots it is kind of deep, but muck boots were all we needed. But we didn't know that.
Yeah.
So we hike in and we get, I don't know, maybe 50 yards into the timber, and just roaring, just thunderous. It sounded like it was less than 100 yards away. A bugle rips off to our right. And Ryan and I both just stop and look at each other, and I'll never forget the look on his face. And it was incredible how loud it was.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that was something about this trip. Ryan asked me, what about this did I not expect at all? That was it. I did not expect them to be that loud. So that was fucking awesome. So we're like, dude, let's go towards that and set up. So we walked maybe 50 yards more towards that and found some decent trees and got set up. And as we're in the stand, this experience was everything that I wanted it to be. It's just beautiful stars, a super clear sky. There's fucking Sika deer bugling. I think I heard 5 before first light. Wow. Bugles, and then hinds are mewing. It was just, it was incredible. And
very, very cool, very surreal. I'm sitting in the stand and I can't help but just smile. When you hear one of those things rip, you're like, it was just unreal.
Yeah. When I heard that first bugle, I knew in my bosom that I will be hunting these for the rest of my life. I knew it. And so we're sitting in the stand and starts coming light starts coming up. The woods is coming alive. And I'm hearing sounds that are just not what I'm used to. It's nothing like home. There's frogs, there's birds that are just not indigenous to where we're from that are here. And they're abundant. Turkey, we're hearing gobbles. This is like in an outdoorsman's paradise. It's terrible. Don't ever go there.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. But the mosquitoes are absolutely brutal. I had 2 thermocells, and I still got bit. I got bites all over me.
Really?
But most of the time, when the thermocells started running, I feel like I got most of my bites hiking in and climbing. But once the thermocells start ripping, I was pretty good.
Mine was acting funny. I'm glad we didn't have mosquito problems. It just wasn't getting hot enough. I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah, maybe it got wet.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, when you fell into the sinkhole.
Yeah.
I got a scenario about that later. Continue.
Okay, so first light's coming up, and it must have been not long after first light. I don't think the sun was even completely up. Off to my left, I see movement. And I'm like, holy shit, is that a fucking Sika deer? No way. I just get in here, my first sit, and I'm already coming into contact with one. And I'm watching and looking, and it's a whitetail.
Yes. Hell yes. Old Faithful.
Old Faithful. I can't even get away from these things. They just follow me. So it was like a spike. It might have been like a 4-pointer, a small 4. I don't know what it was. But I watched him traverse he was coming from a drier spot. I was on an edge between some dry land and flooded timber. And for every reason that a whitetail hunter knows, they're creatures of edges. And Sika deer we found are too. Yeah. So
shout out to whitetail deer. They are so adaptive.
They live anywhere.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
Me and Runsky seen a huge buck come out of the frag.
8 feet tall frag.
It was probably more than that, but it was a big buck just stormed right out of the frag and into the soybean field. I was like,
It's crazy that buck just came out of that.
Yeah. And what's interesting is they don't consider Sika deer an invasive species because they can live side by side with whitetail, and they do totally different things. They eat different food, and they don't bother each other.
Yeah.
They're just fine together, which is awesome. So I'm sitting in the stand, and I mean it's now sun has completely came up, and it's just beautiful. I'm just reeling in the majesty that is God's grace in there. That is just, I mean, it's just beautiful.
Mainly because your phone wouldn't work.
Yeah. My phone. So for this whole trip, my phone was absolutely useless. I had zero signal, and like at first I was like, man, this is going to be a little rough. But honestly, like when you don't have the possibility to use it, like I can understand like how back in the day. I've always wondered that, like how my dad did these all day long sits, you know, and it's like you can't do anything. You're just sitting there. But honestly, it definitely made me more attentive, and it was a nice break, honestly. And we did some long sits. We'll get into it, but so it was. I want to say the first light right now is like just after 7. So I want to say it was probably about 7:30, 7:45, and off to my right, I see motion again on the other side of the swamp. This was the flooded timber, and I look over, and at about 60 yards, and when I seen the whitetail, I was like, "Is that a Sika deer? Is that a Sika deer?" I was like wondering, you know. But as soon as I seen this animal, I knew instantly that's a Sika deer because they are so dark. They're pretty much black.
Yeah.
From rolling in this black water of this swamp, and their coats are a dark brown anyway. But I mean I knew immediately what I was watching, and I seen him, and I was like, oh man, should I try to film him? And I was like, he might take a hard left and come over to me. So I grabbed my bow, and I'm watching him, and he's moving what I believe was like a northeast direction, and he just parallel to me, and I watch him walk, and it was a spike, and he just moved off into the distance, and I was like, holy shit, like man, if I was 30 yards over, I might have had a shot on him. But it was really cool just to be able to get to see one opening morning, first day out there.
Was your heart pounding?
It was. I wasn't like fired up. It might have been just because of how far he was, but I mean I was definitely like, it's almost like seeing a doe for me, you know, like, ooh. And there was a possible he could take a hard left and come my direction, but I kind of knew that he just wasn't. Yeah. And they move with purpose. They're not like whitetails where they just like kind of lollygag around and they'll smell stuff and they'll stop and keep walking. These animals, I heard one guy describe them as like hogs. They just never stop moving. They're just always running around moving. And sometimes they'll just take off and run for no reason for like 30 yards and stop. Like, which is another reason that makes them so hard to hunt, because they do not stop moving.
And you can't pattern them that well.
Yeah, and they don't move like whitetail, and that they'll use the same trail every day. They'll stick to a specific area, especially stags apparently are very territorial, but they're not going to make the same move at the same time every day like a whitetail might. So it's tricky. But so I watched him take off, and the rest of our sit was uneventful that morning. What time did we leave? It was like 9:30, 10 o'clock?
Probably about 10 o'clock, 9:45, I started climbing down.
Yeah. And you didn't see nothing that morning?
I didn't see anything. But let the record show, just for people that aren't familiar with these animals, so a spike Sika is a trophy.
Yeah.
Like compared to a whitetail. Mm-hmm. Like if you get a spike Sika, like that's a shooter.
Yeah, it's a shooter.
Yeah.
For most people. I mean.
But I mean, just like for some people, like an 8-point, you might be like, oh, I'll let it walk. But 90% of the population, they see an 8-pointer, they're going to shoot it.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the Sika stag. Most people are going to shoot that. I would have shot it.
Yeah, and they are bigger than we thought they were.
Yeah, they're small, but honestly, I would say that spike was like a yearling size doe.
Okay.
So they are small, and that a spike, he's probably a couple years old, and they'll get bigger, but like he wasn't that small. I mean, I think he was probably, I don't know, 70 pounds maybe, maybe 60. I don't know. He was like a small deer.
I expected them to be like fawns,
like chihuahuas,
but they're considerably bigger than that.
That's what I was expecting too. Like I had like my eyes peeled on like the marsh, just Because I didn't know how small they'd be.
Yeah. And they are small, but they're not as small as I guess I was anticipating.
Yeah.
I was anticipating these things to be like a foot and a half off the ground.
beagle.
Yeah, like a small dog. But they got some size to them. And apparently the meat is next to none. It's the best. So after that sit, we were like, okay, now we know where some bugles are coming from, and we get a general idea of like where we want to go. But on our way out, Ryan and I come across a patch of some white oaks. And so for us as whitetail hunters, we're like, maybe we should set up here tonight. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't know how much they like white oak. Like, is that like a real desirable food source? Yeah, I don't know. So he gets in contact with Gary, and we had been planning to meet him for lunch. So we get out of the woods and we go meet Gary at the Wolford store. He has a podcast too. It's called Blackwater's Edge. And it's mostly about snakehead, but they do talk about hunting Sika deer on there.
Is that the podcast you sent us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's his podcast. Him and like two other guys. So we go meet him at the store, and he's with two other Sika deer hunters. One guy from South Carolina who comes up like every year, and another local guy. And so basically we just sat there with them for a little while and asked every question we could. We picked their brain. And I talked to another guy before they got there, because we got there before them. And he was a Sika deer hunter, and he was like, yeah, they're not really going to mess with the white oak. I wouldn't sit there. I was like, okay. And that's also where I bought the Sika reel. And then Gary gets there, and them guys are like, yeah, it's worth sitting over that white oak. So I got two totally different answers.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, that's the general consensus is yeah. What I think is they will eat white oak, but I don't think they want them. They're not as desirable as like a whitetail.
They don't seek it out.
I don't think they would have gone to that white oak, because like that white oak we saw was like on pretty dry land, and apparently for them, and again they will go on dry land, but they're happiest where their feet's in the water, but they don't want to get like super deep. But I think for them, there's so many like what are they called? There's like berries. I saw a ton of like berries, which is like a huge food source for them, but it's so hard to like pinpoint where because they eat everything and they'll just graze as they go. Mm-hmm. But they're like marsh berries or something. But like there's so many other like desirable food sources like right where they want to be.
Catbrier and northern bayberry.
Bayberry, that's it. But it's hard for me to believe that they would have gone to that white oak.
Yeah, but nonetheless, we got all this information from them. They got some advice on how to call to them and everything like that. So we head back in. And what time did we go back in? Do you remember?
We got in kind of early. We were in our stand probably by 3:30.
Yeah. Which is what we found out early for these animals. Yeah. It's not like whitetail, like where you want to get in there early. Like you don't have to get in there till like maybe 2 hours before sundown, because they're just not moving till it starts to get late. But we got in there early, and I'm fucking exhausted. Like I didn't sleep well at all this week. Just so crazy busy with work and everything. And so I remember around 4 o'clock I decided to take a nap. I woke up at 4:40.
Hell yeah.
And I started ripping some calling. Ryan, why don't you take over the story from here, because this is where really you were.
So, I set up, I don't know, maybe 100 yards more inland than you. We didn't want to wear the chest waders again. It was just hot. We realized where we were at. We needed the muck boots were fine. He forgot his muck boots in your truck, John's truck, and it was a whole debacle trying to retrieve those.
Oh my God,
with the bridge being closed since 06.
Yeah, Dorchester County, get your fucking shit together.
Bridge has been closed for 20 years.
Yeah, and it's still on the GPS.
Yeah.
We drove out to try to get that. It said we were like 2 minutes away. And then it was like, we talked to a guy like, yeah, bridge is closed. You got to go all the way. And it was like 45 minutes.
Dude, we were within 100 yards of the boat ramp. We just couldn't get there because the fucking bridge was closed.
So you guys did the same thing.
Yeah.
But so he wore my Crocs. I don't know why we didn't just wear the chest waders, but
it was fucking hot. Now, mind you, it's unseasonably warm.
Yeah.
Then for October, it was like 80 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I go in, I climb into my tree, and I'm like in the marsh. And it, like, again, there's nothing going on. And then I would say sunset was like 6:30.
I think it was 6:44.
6:44. That's 6:24 today, so it's probably about 6:30.
Okay. I thought it was later.
But it was probably like 5:45. The woods go from dead to noise everywhere. I heard hinds mewing constantly.
Wow.
I heard bugles. It went literally from completely quiet to like an orchestra around you. Like, it was insane. It felt like it was like I was in like a powder keg where I was at. Like, it was just about to explode. And I'm saying like prayer text to Seth.
Maybe this will get through.
I'm like literally like, if you get this, start hitting your call. Cause like, I was like, you can hear all these hinds over there. I'm like, they're just gonna send all the stags over there. And I'm like sitting there in my stand, I'm like cursing Seth out on my breath. I'm like, fucking call. What are you doing? And then eventually he would like, I'd hear him call, and I'm like, thank God. But I'm sitting there, and it was like 6:10, and this is something I was not prepared for. And we'll get into later how I'm like, okay, like it's not the norm. And I'm convinced, we'll talk about it. But Seth called. So I'm sitting there, and I forgot my bow hanger in my waders. So I'm just holding my bow. So I was ready. I was standing up. The only thing I didn't have was I have a wrist release. I didn't have it on my bow. But I hear Seth call. Seth calls once. I think he got like through the second call. And all of a sudden I hear the brush just moving. And I'm like, what the hell? And a spike stag sprints under my stand. And I am like convinced he called that thing in. Because I heard it and it was like, okay, something's over here. Like, and it might even, I don't know if he like did a good mew call. I might have been like, what's going on? What's in my territory? But he sprinted in like a bull on parade. And I was like, oh shit. So I grabbed my bow. And he stopped, honestly, for like 2.5, 3 seconds at about a 12-yard range.
Jesus.
But they said, we were talking to Gary, and he's like, if you have one, like, you have about a 3-second shot window. And I was like, he was dead on. And by the time I picked up my bow and pulled back, he sprinted about 15 yards further, stopped for like a second, just got a deal with the situation. I wasn't super confident with like where he was. There was some brush, and I was like, fuck it. I pulled back, had him. I gave him like a little stop call.
I heard him say, meh.
Yeah, because he was like moving, and then as soon as I went to shoot, he sprinted off again 5 yards. It was tough.
But you let her fly.
I let her fly, but I think, like I said, I think he was just so like motivated by that call that he was just like trying to figure out what the hell was going on. But it was hard for me because I'm sitting there. I'm like, I felt ready. I don't know what I got to do. I guess when I start hearing those bugles in the future, I just got to be ready to rock.
Put your release on.
Yeah, which is like, obviously no one wants to do that. But like I said, with these animals, it's not like they're going to move. Like, you have 45 minutes to an hour shot window. And it's like a power hour in terms of they're hammering it. Like, they're so vocal during that hour. But, I mean, it was cool seeing them right under me. But obviously the regret, I'm like, at 12 yards, if I was ready, like, that's, even for me, that's a layup.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the benefit of it is, obviously, it wasn't like a once-in-a-lifetime stag. I'm sure I'll see another spike one again. It was cool. Like I said, for us going in, we just wanted to see one. And it was super cool now that I know he definitely called it in. Whether he was, like, trying to go get some or he was, like, just trying to figure out what was going on, the call worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously regret that I missed it, but it was cool.
Yeah.
So I heard him shoot, and I was like, oh, fuck, I hope he got one. You know what I mean? And he's not coming down. I don't see him turn his light on or nothing, so I started to get like, damn, I think he missed. And I was in a white oak on drier land, and I didn't see anything that night. But I climbed down, we climbed down, we looked over to where he shot, and there was no blood or anything. So we, it kind of sucked, but it was still, hey, we're 1 for 1. I saw one yesterday, or I saw one this morning. You seen one tonight. Actually had a shot on one tonight. So we're just, I mean, this is awesome. And we get back here and you guys tell us your story, and we're just like, dude, we had a totally different experience.
Yeah, totally different experience.
I think you're full of shit. They're not real.
No, they're legit ghosts.
They're legit ghosts. They don't exist.
They don't exist.
They are. These things are so hard to hunt.
Big Liz and Sika deer. Ghosts.
Yeah. So we get back here, and it's like 9 o'clock. We eat some dinner, have a couple beers, and go right to bed, and get up 5 hours later and do it all over again. So
That was rough.
we go in the next morning, and we decide we're going to go back to where we heard them bugling, and it was roughly. We found a new parking spot. Gary told us a better spot to park, which cut our hike in half. So we hiked further into the flooded timber this time, but we had a shorter walk to get to the timber. So this ended up being a little over a mile and a half hike in the morning. And of course, we're blind here. We're just trying to get in the area where we heard the bugles. We don't know the area at all, so it's tough to pick a good spot. And we found a spot where there were some nice trails. There was a nice, it was almost like a creek, but it was only like 12 inches deep and like 20 feet across. And we set up, both of us, on that creek. There was also white oaks there, so we were sitting on that creek, and we sat there. When we heard, the problem is when we went in this morning, there was a lot of other hunters in there. We had two other hunters within a couple hundred yards of us, because you can see the lights in the dark. And you can also tell the difference between a real bugle and a fake one. And these guys were bugling and doing a pretty shitty job of it. Yeah. But we did hear some bugles this morning that were real. You could tell the guys aren't bugling an hour before sunup. Mm-hmm. So those ones are real. And we heard them, nothing nearly as close as the first day. And
just a lot more pressure. We showed up to our spot. There was 2 trucks already there. When I went to go set up, so Seth set up at a spot, and then I started going up the creek to set up, and I looked 200 yards in front of me, and I see a light. And we're so far away from the parking, we're like, what the hell?
We just did not expect anyone else to have the gumption to hike over a mile and a half into a swamp at 4 o'clock in the morning. But apparently, and Ryan said this, like, dude, the guys we seen out there, they weren't, Orange Army fat guys. These dudes were getting after it. You know what I mean? These guys are go-getters that are hunting these animals.
Like when you think of like the backcountry elk hunter, like you see those guys, like that's what these guys are. Like it's like, well, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but it's rough, tough. It's hard to get back there. It's tough hunting. It's not for the faint of heart. So like
mosquitoes.
A lot of the guys that are getting back there are like thinking about the same thing we are. We're like, we got to get a mile and a half back, and everyone else is thinking that.
Is thinking the same thing.
It's probably a good thing these animals aren't 200-pound animals, because if you got to drag it 2 miles through the fucking shit,
it'd be miserable.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be brutal. Yeah. So we get set up there, and it's just the same thing, just gorgeous out, and not quite as cool that morning. And we sat there, uneventful, seen absolutely nothing. Just heard some stuff, hind mews and some stag bugles, some fake bugles. And Ryan and I would just look at each other when we'd hear a fake one, and we'd just give a thumbs down. Like, nope, ain't nothing coming to that. But I think just all that pressure out there, they were staying in cover. And we sat there till about noon, which was a long, phoneless sit.
I mean, it was a Saturday, peak rut.
Yeah. So we figured we'd give it the old college try.
And Saturday was opening day at duck season here on the Eastern Shore. So, and if it wasn't opening day, you probably would have had even more pressure out there.
Yeah. We heard a hell of a lot of shooting.
Oh, it was World War III.
It was how many shotgun blasts think we heard? 500?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, it was a lot. Hunting is a way of life down here in Dorchester County, Maryland.
Different.
Hunting, fishing.
Yeah, everywhere you go, you see fucking redneck blinds or blinds and fields. I mean, it's just everybody down here hunts.
People standing in the middle of the road when you're trying to get through, they're fishing and shit.
The Walmart down here's got schwackers and rages and lighted crossbows, lighted knocks. It's a totally different world here.
You were walking through one where they had nocturnals on the shelf. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't have any for gold tip. No. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But so that one was uneventful. We went and met you guys at a diner, had some lunch. And trying to think what transpired after that, Ryan.
Well, that's when the story starts.
This is when the good part starts, ladies and gentlemen. Stay in here with us. Hang in there. It gets much better. So on the way out, Ryan and I are talking, and I'm like, I've been thinking about this, and this is one of the benefits to not being on your phone. I had 7 hours in the stand without a phone that morning. and I'm just I'm strategizing, thinking about how we can get on these fucking animals. And there was something that occurred to me. On the way into this property, there is a creek that runs, and it's deep. It's very deep. It's like 6 to 8 foot deep, but it's not far across. It's only like, at some spots, it's probably like 8 feet across, but too far to jump. And it runs a fucking damn near a mile long.
No logs.
No logs, nothing. There's no way to cross it. But it's like right off the parking area, and it's on the way in. But every time we come out of there in the dark or go in the dark, we heard a loud bugle in that area. And I was just like, I bet nobody's going in there because it's close to the parking lot. And everybody thinks you got to hike a mile in. And even if you did want to go in there, you got to somehow cross that creek, which is a fucking nightmare. And I was like, and I'm hearing a bugle in there. So I'm like, all these other guys are doing exactly what we're doing. They're hiking a fucking mile and a half, 2 miles back here. Why don't we mix it up? Try to go after that stag that's in there. How do we cross this creek? So we're brainstorming, and somehow we come up with the idea.
I'll let the record show. This was all Seth's idea, not we. It was. I'll give him credit.
I told you guys to get an axe and chop a tree down and
We
walk
did.
across the
Did get an
log.
axe.
We got so
We never would do that on wildlife. Let the record show. We did not
Yeah.
use the axe.
yeah, we were gonna chop a tree down from Ryan's yard and take it, but my first idea was to get a fucking inner tube and float back and forth across this creek because it's like a still water creek.
Yeah.
You could very easily do this. So we go to Walmart and we're looking around and we couldn't find anything like that because it's out of season. Like nobody's buying inner tubes right now.
Fucking October.
We go in the clearance section. And there is a rainbow raft. It's a 6 foot. We'll post pictures. Raft that is like it's a nice raft, and it took us fucking 30 minutes to blow this thing up.
It was comfortable.
Yeah. So we took this raft, and we get to our hunting spot, and it's like there's an impending storm. I mean, and we're talking the storm. Yeah. Coming in like gusts of like 30-mile-an-hour winds. And we have no idea, like, do they move? We texted Gary and we're like, hey, are they going to move in this storm? We just don't know. But we're like, you know what, dude? We're down here for one reason. We're here to hunt, and we are not faint of heart hunters. If I think I have a chance, we're going. So we get out there, and we're waiting for the storm. Because the radar is saying this storm is going to hit around 4 and go to like 6.
And then beautiful blue skies. We're like, how the hell is it going to rain?
Yeah, and we just almost didn't want to believe it, I think. But even so, the storm was going to end at 6, which left us some daylight. And, dude, what is better than right before and right after a storm? I mean, hunting is great for whitetail right after a storm ends, especially if it's right before sundown. Like, we're like, dude, that'll be perfect if we can just weather this storm, and we'll see what happens. So we get the raft, and it's just a shit show pushing this thing across. I'm putting my climber on, pushing it across to Ryan, and we get everything across nice and dry. And then it's time for me to get across.
How long do you think it took us to get everything across? Like half hour?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Pain in the ass.
Yeah, because it's like trying to push this thing. You push it hard and it like doesn't go. It just like splashes. And
As soon as you get over it, just thick briars.
Sure.
it was
You step 2 feet in, all of a sudden you're over your head.
yeah. It was brutal. And so everything got across nice and dry. And I'm like, all right, well, it's just me now. So I got to like kind of jump on this thing to get it to push me to the other side. And when I did that, the center of the raft just like dropped in, and my nuts got wet, and my legs are soaked. So
Water was incredibly warm, you said.
yeah, really warm, like piss.
I think that
Probably was piss.
I think that water honestly stays warm year round. It's something with like the sediment.
Yeah.
Like I think that's a thing. Right? Like, I don't know about year round. I think that's also a reason like why the mosquitoes are so bad there, because the sitting water is warm.
Well, I know it smells awful.
It does smell terrible.
God.
Got shot deer.
The one interesting fact is another invasive species, the loblolly pine, has like a black sap. And that sap seeps into the water, which makes the water like black, which is why it's called black water. But what that also creates is hot water. The sun beats down, it's black water, that water gets hot fast. So it is perfect for mosquitoes. I mean, which is why it's so brutal, which is why if you're watching this, I'm itching my ass off. So I get wet, we get to the other side, I'm like, fuck. And we get over there, and I mean, this looks like perfect. You know what I mean? It's super swampy, just nasty terrain. And we get in, and we're walking into this swamp, and all of a sudden, it is just like a fucking F-18 flies in our face. This wind just rolls in.
Yeah, just engulfed the It was actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was terrifying because like we can both deal with like rain, but we were like we don't want to be struck by lightning.
20
But-
feet up in a...
And it was like the marsh just was in a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
Check this battery. Okay, we're good. Right, so we get in, and we're like, all right, dude, here's what we're going to do. Because we don't want to get stuck in a flooded swamp, and because we don't want to get too high in a tree and get struck by lightning, we're going to climb like 10 feet up in a tree and weather this storm out. And when the storm subsides, maybe we can climb up a little further, and we'll go from there. Like, we didn't tie off. We just wanted to get high enough to where we're off the ground and maybe a little bit concealed, but also not super high so we get struck by fucking lightning. So we're just going to weather this storm. And we climb into our tree stands, and I'm sitting there, and it's storming good. I mean, it's raining, the wind is blowing. I mean,
I didn't hear. I thought I heard a little bit of thunder.
yeah, I think I heard thunder once.
Yeah, but not.
It wasn't like real lightning, which is we should have went higher, but hindsight's 20/20. And I mean, so a swamp is full of dead trees, so that's another thing we're worried about is a tree falling on us. And
Or the tree you're in falling.
Yeah, I hear a big ass tree fall. Like, I mean, it's a legit storm here, but we're determined now. We're soaking fucking wet. I mean, it's
Miserable.
just miserable. Temps dropped very quickly, so this is just brutal. And I was just thinking to myself, like, you're here, you're fucking sticking this out. Like, you stay in the stand. You're gonna find out whether or not they move in storms.
Now, meanwhile,
I kept.
while all this is going on, me and Runsky are back here at Ryan's house napping.
I kept thinking.
Like
to
these
my-
fucking idiots.
I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm already wet. I'm already wet. I'm already wet. Like,
Yeah.
I looked over, and I'm talking. I was miserable.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool being like in the marsh we were in, like in the storm. Like it was just a cool scene. And I looked over at Seth, and Seth's got like the same clothes on I do. We just have a long sleeve on. No one's got rain gear. We got this cheap ass poncho from Walmart.
Got torn up in the briars.
Did not work. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, Seth has to be just as miserable as I am. And I was like, he's still there. I'm like, I'm just gonna tough it out.
But you were hoping to look
If
over at him.
Seth
and him
looked
go,
over at me and was like, I was like, all right, dude,
Give the
I'm
old
going
foot
now. And
slash.
I was like, geez.
Yeah, I think we're both thinking the same thing. Like, I was like, if Ryan wants to leave, I'll leave. But like,
I'm not tapping out first.
I'm not tapping out. Yeah. And
Seth is just. I look over at Seth. I'm sitting there. I'm like shivering. I'm like, I'm gonna die of hypothermia. All I'm thinking about is like, oh my god, we gotta take this freaking. We gotta climb down. The water's gonna be so much higher. We gotta take that freaking raft back. Literally,
which could have been popped by brambles.
maybe 300-400 yards from the car.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be a whole. Like all I could think about is a shower, like a hot shower and a cup of coffee. It's the only thing going through my mind. But I looked over at Seth. He was stoic. He just didn't move. I was like, God damn, the balls on this man. Like, he just sit there like just... You're a fucking hero. He just was just looking. Like, he didn't move at all. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, he is unbothered.
Yeah, no. Meanwhile, he's over there sobbing.
This is no factor for him. I was like, I can't be a bitch. He's just...
His body shut down from hypothermia.
Yeah, dude. No, I was hurting. Believe me. I was there by sheer will. I was shivering too. It was fucking brutal.
But I told, before we went in... we'll talk. We'll get to it.
So, and off in the distance, I seen their hind is like a white circle, like rump. They got a really, it's very easy to spot. It was probably 150, 200 yards away, but I seen one. And I was like, oh, fuck. Well, there's one moving in this shit. So maybe these are such tough and just, they live in the harshest climate on the eastern coast. So, like, these animals, I didn't expect them to really be bothered by this storm. And I was kind of hoping that. And they weren't. So... I seen that and I was like, all right, that gave me a little ray of hope. And some time goes by and I'm sitting in the stand, and at this time it's like, what time do you think it was, Ryan?
5:50.
About 5:50. And I hear motion off to my right, very close. I was looking to my left. Off to my right, I hear motion. It was very close. Ryan, take over. What was happening?
So I'm sitting there, and so before we went in, I told Seth, I was like, I already had a shot.
Yeah.
And I told Seth, and like, I'm going to go, like, obviously I live here. It's not that far. I'm going to go tomorrow morning. I told Seth, I was like, if we get a shot opportunity, then I was like, I'm going to give you first dibs on that. And I'm sitting there, and I just see movement like Seth does. And about 20 yards out from me, I just see a head come through. And it was literally like I saw a bull elk, like a mini bull elk. And it was just a stag coming through. And this thing was a hammer. Like, I would say it was a 6-pointer, for sure. No doubt 6-pointer.
Yeah.
And I know they get to like an 8-pointer, but
That's rare.
it was a old, mature stag. Like, if you shot one of these on public land, it is an accomplishment. And it's just a testament to Seth's idea that we were just where this thing was comfortable. And we learned from Gary, and it's a good thing to think about, that how they move is traditionally from marsh. They bed in the marsh, and they feed in the forest. So in the morning, they're normally going from forest to marsh. In the evening, they're going from marsh to forest. So we were setting up like right on the edge of the marsh to where they'd move into the forest. And I see this thing come through. And I'm like, holy shit. And I look over at Seth, because I wouldn't give him first shot priority. And again, we're 10 feet off the ground. And Seth's in La La Land. He's being stoic meditating. And I'm like, fuck. I was like, I'm taking this shot.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
So I start slowly standing up. As soon as I start slowly standing up, a wind gust blows. And you can tell, like, it blew right at him. At this point, I could see his whole body. And he was a big animal for a Sika deer. And he just starts smelling around. You can tell, like, something was off with him. Like, he could just, I don't think he knew we were there, but he knew something was up.
Yeah.
And he just stands around and then turns around and runs off. Didn't blow at us or anything, so I don't think he knew, like, we were there. And Seth said he saw him run. But, I mean, I think if we were 20 feet up in the air, we would have had shots.
Yeah.
But this was an incredible animal. I mean, I looked over at Seth when he ran away. I kid you not, my jaw dropped. Like, I've never seen an animal like this in the wild.
That is so while that's happening to Ryan, basically I turn my head and I lock eyes with this thing. And he's got like briars in front of his face, so I didn't see his whole rack real well. I could just see the top of it. So I knew he was at least a 4-pointer. And I was like, holy shit, that's a fucking hammer. And his antlers they're so cool looking. They're just a different texture.
They're cool animals.
And like when we look at each other, he turns around and takes off. And I don't know if he was even looking at me or he just seen me turn my head and was like, uh-oh. And with the smell, obviously scent is not as much of a factor for these animals. They
can't smell.
I don't think they can smell nearly as well. Yeah. Because they live in such a smelly habitat.
Yeah, and I mean, what's leaving scent in a fucking marsh?
Yeah, you're not. There's no ground scent to be concerned about.
That's probably why they're so vocal, so they can find each other.
Yeah. And
that's a good thought.
That makes great sense, John. Great point. So I immediately, once he like spins around, I grab my bow, stand up, and I'm knocked already. And I'm about to draw, but he was moving too quick, and I see him stop at about 80 yards and just walk off.
Should have sent it right up his fucking shithole.
Incredible, absolutely incredible animal.
Just that experience alone was that was all we saw for the rest of the evening. We toughed it out and stayed till dark, and it was just that made all of that suffering and misery worth it. And just that experience with that. I mean, from me to him was less than 10 yards.
That's intense.
It was so intense.
It was just like, I can't say it enough. It was the coolest experience. I mean, it was honestly seeing something like that, like for people that don't understand how rare seeing a stag like that is.
Of that caliber.
It's like seeing like a monster. Like, I guess I'd equate it to like a monster, like 8-10 point buck.
Yeah, it's like seeing a Boone and Crockett buck on public land. And is basically what this animal was. So it was. I was just really happy just being able to zero in on this thing, and that our fucking plan of attack actually paid off. We were so close to getting it done. Had we went higher up in the tree, maybe we could have got a shot on him. But
I mean, it was like, I feel like both of us are so much more prepared for the next time we come and hunt these guys. Like,
learned so much.
Yeah, I mean,
they obviously are unfazed by storms. If anything, it made them move earlier.
Yeah, well, we figured with their terrain, like they're
tough.
They're not afraid of water.
You can't. They're not fazed by that shit.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, that's when Seth was talking about how he was surprised by how they were so loud when they bugled. What I was really blown away by was I was honestly expecting a smaller whitetail that liked to live in the marsh and happened to bugle. Like I was expecting nearly the same thing. And I just thought the rarity of them would make them so tough. But they are legitimately a different animal. How you hunt them is totally different. I mean, when's the last time you got in your stand at 5:10 for a 6:30 sunset and saw animals? Like 5:10, like the locals don't get in their stand until 4:35.
Yeah, me and Runsky found that out the first night. We got there at 12:30, and then we start hearing boats rolling at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, literally.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 boats.
Wow.
There's no point. They are not going to move before that.
And I think what they do, honestly, is they're just so nocturnal to where they're moving the last hour of daylight, and then that first hour in the morning is the only chance you have. So many people telling us that, what is it, Sika o'clock?
Sika Stag 30.
Stag
They
30.
said to hang out till like 10:30 in the morning. Sometimes you'll catch one.
Yeah, but
I think what that is hunters bumping them on the way out and other hunters catching them.
But it was, it's insane, like how different it is, like in terms of how you got to call them. The wind is huge. Like we didn't even think about, like, when's the last time you went hunting whitetail and you didn't factor the wind? Like we didn't even, for our spot, didn't even
love to do that.
think about the wind.
Yeah, the guys told us, they were like, he was like, dude, I shot, I think he said a 4-point stag at 12 yards dead downwind to me yesterday.
Hell yeah.
He was like, dude, the wind, he's like, it might be a factor, but it's not nearly as, you'll have a shot before they wind you.
Which is insane. Like for us, it was like I equate it to the equivalent of like backcountry hunting and whitetail, to where you have to. It's like it still is at the end of the day a hurry up and wait type situation, but you have to hike in. It's tough terrain, but you can be so much more aggressive than you can with whitetail.
Yeah.
Like it, and like calling them in, and it's a very, and I can only speak about the rut. It's a very engaging experience where even the first morning I got skunked, but just hearing those things, like, you know, they're around. Like a whitetail, if you don't see one, you don't know they're there.
Yeah.
Like you can hear them, like, you know, they're around you. You know, the woods are alive. Being able to call them in, having them be able to respond to that. It's a game changer. Not being able to factor in the wind, knowing like you have just some super limited hours. Like you're not sitting there at 3 o'clock. Like maybe something will come by, maybe something won't. It's different. It's a whole different experience.
It is. It really is. And it's almost better that if you can just like not equate them to whitetail at all, just treat them totally different.
Yeah, I think that was probably my issue. I just got whitetail ingrained in my DNA.
Yeah.
But then again, there was nothing on that fucking island. So.
No, there's nothing. No life. A turkey.
Yeah, we've seen turkey feathers. We've seen a couple squirrels, fox skeleton.
Really? That's cool.
It was
human shit.
This place is really, really cool, and I'll be a Sika deer hunter for life from here on out. Of course, it's a little far for me, so I won't be doing it all the time, but I'll definitely be back.
We need to come down for turkey.
I would love to come down here for turkey. I heard gobbles.
The turkey loves swamp.
The Eastern Shore in general is great turkey.
It's just it's an outdoorsman's paradise down here. It really is.
It's a shithole. Don't come.
It sucks. Don't come down here. But now I'm just looking forward to going home and hunting this cold front tonight. Sunday. It's Sunday.
I'm killing a fucking whitetail this week.
I can't wait. I'm pumped. It's a really good cold front coming in. It's like almost a 20-degree temp drop, I think.
From Saturday, yeah.
So I'm really pumped about getting home and getting on them tonight. But this whole thing has just been just an incredible experience that we've had down here. I'm in love with these animals, and I will be back, and I'm on a mission to get it done. But I couldn't be happier with the experience that we did have.
I think you said you're going to try to do like a week
in December, and then
or even like a next rut. Like we're going to do a whole week of hard hunting.
Yeah,
I can't do that. I gotta focus on my whitetail.
In October next year.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, well, that's
I keep forgetting that rut.
It
is
works out
different.
super well because, like, I was telling Seth, I'm like, first off, I'm not going to get in that swamp at 90-degree weather
in September.
So it works out really well for me. Where September I can really focus on whitetail. October I can just flip over to Sika deer, hunt Sika deer hard for those 3 weeks of the rut, and then as soon as their rut's over,
switch back over.
The whitetail rut starts.
Yeah,
and I'm
perfect.
like, it's cool. And then like December, January, I can just do whatever I want. So it's like, it's cool to have that variety.
Yeah.
It is a little sketchy. I don't know how I feel about certain spots hunting Sika deer
By yourself.
solo,
Yeah.
but
Don't go where we went.
I'm gonna like tomorrow morning. I'm getting out there, and then I think it solves my morning hunting. Like I can hunt in the mornings and not worry about it. And then like Assateague's about 35, 40 minutes, probably 35 minutes from here. So it's even closer. And they've got a archery only, the whole north zone, archery only.
Oh.
There's a lot of Sika deer over there. So as soon as muzzleloader hits, that's where I'm going.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd do the same thing if I lived down here. But I think next year, rather than do that elk hunt out west, I think I'm gonna come down here in October and do a week-long rut hunt on these Sika deer. But I also think I may come back because I got 2 weeks off for Christmas, and so I might come back in December and try again too.
Yeah, a guy was saying that as soon as the marsh freezes up, it really like pushes them into certain areas.
It funnels them into where
Yeah.
there's still water because a lot of it freezes up and they want to be in that water. So it'll be cool to do.
Yeah. Faux show. I reckon I'll get a blackwater permit next year, and
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Runty's like, nah.
Nah, well.
Well,
Like I said, man, we didn't see anything, but I still had a great time.
Yeah, it was
cool.
the way we did it. It was fun. I
Yeah.
wish the Prow Pub didn't take a shit.
Yeah, when you guys sent that video of, what was this, Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, or maybe it was Sunday morning of you guys riding that boat in.
Yeah.
It was probably had to be Saturday night. I was like, that's just cool.
It was cool,
And it was
Yeah.
just the mystery of not knowing what's going to come out of that frag.
and nothing did.
But just the thrill of just not
Yeah.
knowing what the fuck's going to come
Something
out.
like every time I'd hear like the water slosh a little bit,
You're like,
my heart started fucking pounding.
That's what I hear. Like they say, like you hear like the pitter patter in the water, and then they say draw your bow because then you got that little window.
Yeah, but oh well, what are you gonna do?
yeah, it was awesome. Anybody got anything else? We're a little over an hour. Great time, fellas.
Good stuff.
I fucking appreciate y'all coming down.
Thank
Ryan,
you, Ryan, for your
Thank you,
hospitality.
Ryan.
You're
for
welcome
hosting.
anytime.
Appreciate your hospitality.
Next year we're gonna get it done.
Yeah, next year. Maybe this year. Maybe December.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys tuning in. It's time for us to go home and refocus on the mystical whitetail.
Mama, I'm coming home.